Raised Rowdy.
Thank you so much for being on the Raised Rowdy podcast. I'm Nicky T.
My name is Kurt Ozan.
And you, of course, are Kassi Ashton.
I'm Kassi Ashton.
Yay.
Yeah.
Hey.
Thanks for coming in, being very punctual.
Yeah.
We appreciate that very much.
Of course.
We haven't had anyone be super late, but it's always nice when we can get even start a little early, so it's good.
Yeah, plus we're kind of out here in the sticks a little, you know? So
Yeah.
Thanks for taking the time to come out.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Kurt and I actually got to see you relatively recently at the Listening Room.
Okay.
You played with Alex Hall and...
Yes, May,
Ryan Larkins.
Estes, and Ryan Larkins. Yeah.
That was a great freaking round, by the way.
Thank you.
That was like one of the best riders. I've been to a lot of riders rounds. That was one of the best for sure.
Yeah, I
Thank
host
you.
writers rounds, and that was awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Alex was hosting it. He asked me to do it. I had never done a listening room round that like wasn't for my publishing company or something, and they paid us at the end.
Yeah.
They like came backstage and gave us money, and I was like, "What is this for?"
For bills.
Yeah. They were like, "Oh, you know, like we pay people to be here," and I was like, "This is why all my friends do these so often."
Yes.
What?
Yeah, we have buddies that do like weekend shows, and they have a decent following now from doing them long enough, and they're like, "You get paid pretty good."
You get, I think I got like $300 or something.
Sick.
I'm like just used to these radio rounds where you basically get like slapped in the face and 2 cents to be there. Do you know what I'm saying? I was like,
Radio
oh,
tour vibes.
money.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's it's an interesting thing. Nashville is definitely different. I try to explain that to people. I had a friend that had reached out and they're like, I want to start a writers round in Mississippi, and I'm like, I don't know how that'll go. You know?
Yeah, because I feel like if crowds like don't know what to expect or that's not what they signed up for, they're gonna get bored real fast.
Yeah.
You have to educate them too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I've done writers rounds in situations where you can tell that whoever put it on did not let the crowd know what it was going to be. And like it was a bar full of loud, rowdy people who like wanted to drink. They don't want to hear your story and your song about a breakup. They want to hear friends in low places. They don't want to hear you like whine on, and then especially if somebody's like not a good storyteller, it's a disaster.
Yeah.
Especially when people always do this, they're like when we were at a writers retreat this weekend and we did a show in Canada, and people were like, "Yeah, I wrote this with blah blah blah, Joey and Claudio or whatever." I'm like, no, we're in Canada. They don't know who those people
They
are.
have no idea.
Yeah.
My biggest pet peeve is like, let's say that the song is called like Heartbreak Hangover, and they're like, yeah, this is when you go to the bar and you get hungover because you're heartbroken. Anyway, I'm like, what? I'm like, literally make up a story. Who cares if that was just a title that you pulled out of your butt when you were writing? Like, make up a story, dude.
Yep.
I'm totally gonna write Heartbreak Hangover though.
You're welcome. You can have that.
You can have a third.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We did that though. It was so we did, had like a writers retreat, and we did shows to basically pay for all the tickets to Canada and
Yeah,
hotels.
totally.
And stuff.
Yeah.
But it was really fun. But I did kind of clarify. It said, songwriters event. But
Right.
when I hit the stage as the MC, I was like, this, and Ben was like, I kind of stole what he said the one night too. I was like, these artists are paying attention to every single line, and they're placing them exactly where they want to. So like, make sure you stay quiet. If you want to go talk, just bop out into the outside room there,
Yeah.
And the 2 nights I said that in the front worked really well. And the middle one wasn't terrible, but it was definitely the loudest.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I realized that it was very important for me to say that, not just the artist on stage saying it, but the first thing that I said kind of being that in that mix.
Hello, while I have your attention,
Yes.
they're going to be expecting you to listen because they have jokes
Yeah.
that they want you to laugh at on cue.
Yeah.
There was this one guy that was talking Saturday night, and I was staring a freaking hole through his head. I'm like, shut up. He was at the bar, the drunk guy. I'm like,
Yeah.
I've literally stopped like a round before. We were doing a round for a charity event, and it was just so loud that we could barely hear the monitors in front of us. And I just was like, okay, if anybody's gonna do it, it's gonna be me.
100%.
The people who are like running around in the back of the room are looking at me like, please be the sass queen that we like hope you are. And so I was like, hi, I love that you love the people around you. I love that socially you're having the time of your life right now. but we're here to like raise money for this, and we're incorporating that into the songs and into our stories. And part of us being up here is so that you can get to know the charity and like kind of get in your feels so that we can do the most for these kids. Let's do that if we can.
Yeah.
Like,
If you talk, you hate kids. Go ahead.
yeah, if you talk, you hate kids. Anyway, if you want to socialize, go to Losers.
Yeah.
Anyway, here's Wonderwall. No.
Well, it's always interesting too, and it's funny because like being here now long enough and being in the scene, you kind of know how it works. But
Totally.
we do host at Losers, so sometimes
Yeah.
sometimes you have to take the crowd there. Right?
Yeah, you do.
It's that's one of the things too that is always interesting. You'll see people whose songs can take the crowd, or you'll see
Totally.
people that they can take the crowd. Right.
Yeah, and sometimes like you can have the best, most illustrative, creative story behind a song, but if that's not the crowd for it, you better just make the story like a joke and something funny and go on with it. I just got off tour with Jamey Johnson, and we were sitting outside his bus, and he literally was like, "This job is herding cats. And if you don't know how to herd cats, or you get offended by herding cats, then this is not what you should be doing." And he's like, and some nights you get off stage and go, "Nope, there was no way I was herding those cats." He's like, and there's nothing against you. He's like, because they're cats.
Yeah.
Right. 100%.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I mean, you know, I'm not an artist, I'm not even a writer or anything. I'm just someone that loves music.
Right.
So getting to see those different nights, like getting to watch someone completely make it so that a pin could drop at Losers is wild, you know, because it's usually Losers. It's usually rambunctious and everybody's getting crazy.
Yeah.
So it's super interesting. And that's one of the things like when I talk about people, I talk about like Ashley McBride.
I was literally going to say Ashley McBride.
Yeah.
too.
Really?
Yes.
If you're in an Ashley show, she will take you on a journey. And there's rambunctious songs, but there's also ones where she can make it so that pin can drop.
That's
and you can hear
amazing.
it.
Sparrow.
Yeah.
That's really
Yeah.
cool.
So I think that's important. And I mean, I'm sure that's stuff that you can learn as you go on, you know, as you've done more events and more different types of events. 'Cause
Totally.
a full band show is very different than an acoustic show where you're telling stories, you know?
I actually just told someone I had done a round where it was one of those things where an artist canceled that was supposed to be full band, so they plugged us in to do a round. And it was actually at the Spotify house during CMA Fest, Friday night at 7 o'clock. An artist
boy.
pulled out, they called us, they're like, "Can you do a round? 3 girls. Like, can you, like, whatever." So I'm like, all right. Well, the Spotify house is full of people ready to party.
Yeah.
Like, that's what
Especially
they're
at
there
7.
for, right? They've packed in, like, sardines.
They've been drinking all day.
They've been drinking all day. It's 7 p.m. on Friday. That's like a prime spot.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right. In my brain, I'm like, this is going to be a little wild, and this is not going to be what they're expecting, but I'm going to do my best. So I did like what you said, where it's not a singing competition. It's not a, can I tell the most long poetic story? It's, can I make them laugh? Can I make them go, woo? You know, like woo girls, and like get them on board with the hook.
Yeah.
And I was telling someone, I was like, I was able to do that to the best of my ability, I believe, because of Radio Tour.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you hadn't gone through Radio Tour and played for the shittiest crowds ever in the worst parking lots or the back rooms of a Mexican restaurant, like, you just don't know what it's like to go up there and go, okay, this is what I'm dealing with right now. This is not, can I make people cry? This is not, can I make people, you know, listen to me and hear my sob story. It's like, can I get them to drink more beer and scream my name and maybe be sober enough to put my name in Instagram when this is done?
Yeah. I assume that that's a skill that you acquire over time, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing for sure. And it's funny, like I've kind of like helped like people that were like, hey, we need some folks for private gigs. And I'm like, well, what kind of private gig is this? Is this a hootin' and hollering private gig? Is this a they're playing during dinner private gig? Or is this like the crowd's going to be paying attention private gig?
Yes.
Because I'm sure there's different prices for all of those things.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So it's always interesting. But I mean, again, I feel like that's part of the business is being able to observe your room and either your live show that you've built can take it no matter what.
Yeah.
Or you're editing the live show
You're
a little
pivoting.
bit. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Trying to
the
figure it out.
worst. When you're told as an artist that it's one kind and you show up and it's not, and you're like, I've prepped for like a listening room and these people if I don't sing beer songs for 45 minutes straight, they're going to boo me off this stage. Like, that is the worst. And you finally just, like, have to quit getting pissed off, like, when you show up and you've been told the wrong thing, and just learn how to pivot quickly.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
When you're not set up for success, I hate that feeling.
I hate it. When you don't get the information and they're like, oh, it's chill and they're going to be seated. I played a radio show like that. They're like, it's going to be 80 people, 100 people seated, and you're acoustic, right? You're opening up for Granger Smith, blah, blah, blah. We are in St. Louis. I'm like, all right, sick. I was my first year of radio tour. I knew nothing. I was a baby. I get in there. I see we're sound checking. We can't get anyone to pay attention to us, even check us, nothing. And this guy's putting up crowd barriers. And I'm like, hey, those are crowd barriers. Are they seated? And he goes, no, it's standing. And I go, what's the capacity? He goes, oh, it should be like 800-900. And I'm like, what? So we're in this double story thing next to the St. Louis Cardinals. So it's like Beer USA. It's like a big bar. Concrete. The acoustics are trash. Oh, by the way, Granger, that was acoustic, no, he's full band with lights and everything. And I've prepared a 30, 45-minute acoustic show for 100 people seated. Like, I thought, and of course, I wasn't old enough or, skilled enough to pivot. I think I could have lit myself on fire during that show, and no one would have even noticed. It was awful.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things I feel like once you've experienced that craziness a few times, everything else seems like, okay.
You're like, I literally have this. They're like, are you freaking out? You're like, no, I've seen worse. I swear I've seen worse.
So funny. How was that Jamey Johnson tour, by the way? How long were you with him? And...
Like, it's weird because I was only out with him for 2 weeks, but it like rewired something in my brain for the better. Like, probably the best tour experience I've ever had. I haven't even had bad tour experience. I love, and that's not me like buttering anybody's biscuit. I love every tour experience I've ever had, for different reasons. But Jamey, like, first of all, my dad doesn't listen to very much music, right? He's just a hillbilly who's too busy drinking wild turkey and smoking cigarettes to press play on something. But he listens to Jamey Johnson. He's been to like 14 or 15 Jamey Johnson concerts. I got him into like Sturgill and like a bunch of people that were adjacent. Yeah. So I've been to Jamey concerts. He was like on my dream bucket list of people to open for, which is also nerve-wracking because you're like, what if I meet him and he's an asshole? This is going to suck. Was not the case. I showed up within 30 minutes of getting there. He comes up to me. He goes, I've waited so long to meet you. And I'm like, he's like, I've been looking forward to this, blah, blah, blah. He's like, I want to sing a cover with you during my show. What do you want to sing? And I was like, Night Moves, Bob Seger. And he was like, woo, Seger, let's do it. I'm like, okay. So he walks off and I'm standing there like, okay, all right, cool. I hope I know that song. Yeah, like, okay, cool. And also, he says he's been waiting to meet me for so long. Sick. So he's sound checking, and at the time, the first night, my dressing room was beside the stage, and I hear them playing Night Moves. So I go out there, and he waves me in, and we practice, and he was like, I just want you to sing the whole song. I'm not going to sing. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, I do this because back when I was the opener, nobody gave a shit. He's like, they're getting their beer, they're finding their seat, they're going to the bathroom. He's like, I want you to come out when the full crowd is out there. He just was so kind and so normal and so human. Yeah. And like his whole crew, he is an 11-piece band, by the way. Mm-hmm. No set list. No predetermined anything. He doesn't have his discography up there by his microphone. Nothing. He pulls it out as he goes. Which, first of all, is impressive because I would be up there like, what do I sing? I literally be like, I don't know my own songs. And that his band just like is fresh like that every night. And they'll play songs for the first time that he hasn't played in years. And so they like it because it's an experience and they're kind of building creatively every night. His crew was the most chill, most normal. There was no feeling of like, hey, you're the opener. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? We're nice. Let us know if you need anything. You're the opener. It was never like that.
That's great.
Anything Jamey was eating, everybody else was eating. Jamey sat outside his bus under a tailgate tent every day. You could come sit with him. You know, hey, so-and-so's making barbecue. You want some? And he would go, the road treats everybody the same. And if somebody acts like that's not the case, they're an asshole.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. I got to go out every night and sing night moves. And I remember, I will take this to my grave. I was walking out one night, and I'm like waving to the crowd, about to go sing. He looks at me and he goes, bad bitch. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I was like, I literally, my life is made. And I love them. And like a member of their band texts me like once a week. And they're like, we miss you. Anytime you want to come back out.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Cowboy's so good at guitar. It's amazing.
I love Cowboy. I went up to him the first night after the show. He's their steel player.
Yeah.
And he's been with Jamey for like ever. And then before that, he was with Hank Jr.
Jr.
So like he's, some wires are.
Do you know that on the record, that Lonesome song where he's like, tell him about the bee sting?
Yeah.
Have you heard that thing on that record?
Yes.
That's about Cowboy.
Yeah.
So that's another story. You got to check that out. But his guys had some wild shit happen.
Yeah,
for sure.
I walked up to Cowboy and I was like, hey, you're a bad mofo.
He is.
After the first, and he looked at me, he goes, so are you. And then he would like every day come up and tell me how many stars I have. I don't know. He'd be like, you get 30 stars today. And I'd be like, all right, cool. Yeah.
That's so great.
And then the tour manager, Chad, was like, you got 30? I only have 20. He's like, what the hell?
Someone's a favorite.
Stickers
I
on the back
know.
of the hat.
Yeah, no.
Did he drive you around in his plane at all? I know he does that sometimes.
No, but
Sounds like
I
you guys
would
are on the bus.
totally volunteer if he wanted to.
I love when people are cool, man. Especially when they're like, because that record that I was just talking about was like my favorite country record of all time.
Yeah.
And that Jamey is so cool. Like, it just makes my heart feel good.
So cool. And not like you meet people as headliners that are cool, but they're very much like, hey, in the most discreet of ways, I get special treatment and you don't. He was not like that at all. He came up to him and he goes, my stage is a springboard for people. He goes, and I hope it's that for you. And I was just like, you're literally so kind and so humble, and I don't think you realize that you're Jamey Johnson. I was like, every time you have an opener, people get like, those openers get a certain amount of clout because you picked them. Like, and you're cool, and everyone looks to you for authenticity.
Yeah. Yeah, he's the guy that you think of when you think of that. Like,
Yeah.
you think of some of the most authentic country music songs ever. And just as a person, like, he stood his ground on topics, and he's just, he's who he is.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's nice because, you know, for a long time, I was told I'm not country enough, or I'm not this, or I'm not that, or I don't wear this, or whatever the argument is. And I feel like his crowds got it more than any other crowd I've played for. And I was like, tell me now I'm not country. Like, please. Because I had thousands of hillbillies every night screaming. So what? I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good in my chest and in my heart. So, you know.
Do you find yourself ever like tweaking your set to match the headliner?
I feel like I definitely keep it in mind. Mm-hmm. And I feel like when I was younger and less experienced, I definitely did. But now I just kind of, especially with all the new music I've made, I feel so confident in it that I'm like, I just want to lead with my best foot forward.
Yeah.
And I just want to show them who I am. Because if I was picked for this tour, hopefully, you know, I fit already. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. So let's just show them my artistry. They don't want a B+ version of the headliner. They want my A+ version. So I just try to give them that. But
Makes
I
sense.
did on the Jamey tour. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Clap
I
for
love it.
myself.
I love this.
I did on the Jamey tour though, you know, because you get kind of caught in the rat race of like, perform. They're drunk. Make them scream, make them dance. Dance, perform. Fast song. Okay. Jamey show, they don't care.
Yeah.
If you want to sit there, like Jamey does some nights, and sing 3 ballads in a row, as long as those ballads are killer and you can sing the crap out of them, they're going to love them. So I remember the last weekend, I was like, hey, I was playing power acoustic, so 2 guitar players, and one of my guitar players had like a kick drum stomp thing. And I was like, hey, we were in the dressing room, I'm like, can you just help me make it through the night? Like, that was a song that I grew up singing. Just learned that. So we learned it in like 30 minutes. And I went out and played it. They did very, very sparse accompaniment, and it smashed. And it just felt so rewarding to watch people give a shit.
Yeah.
That you're just singing this slow, old cover, and they're not looking at you like you're cuckoo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
super cool.
It kind of like rewired something in my brain of like, no, I should be allowed to just sing the best songs.
Yeah.
Instead of like, shake your butt, shake your butt, shake your butt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Jamey's built that through his
For sure.
career.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great that that kind of bestows itself upon everyone around him.
Absolutely.
Which is amazing.
Yes, because every night the show is exactly whatever he wants it to be. And his fans know that too, so they're in for the ride.
Yeah. Well, you were mentioning new music.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we talk about the first debut album that you have, full album? So we got a release date for it, right?
We have released it September 20th.
Yep.
This month. I cannot believe it's this month. Someone was in my DMs like the other day, and they're like, 18 days. And I was like, till what? They were like, your album. I was like, oh, yes. My debut album. It's called Made from the Dirt.
Mm-hmm.
I have waited a bajillion years. I have waited a very long time. I got signed 7 years ago.
Yeah.
So this is a long time coming, but I feel like my team and I have always been like super about timing. Me especially, I push that all the time. Timing. Like if you force it when it's not right, you're wasting. You're wasting a chance. You're wasting a shot. And I'm happy that it's worked out this way. In all honesty, that's not like a PR answer or some bullshit. Because I couldn't have made this album 4 years ago. Like I just couldn't have. And if this album were a hill, I would totally die on it if I had to. And that feels good.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if I would have made an album 4 or 5 years ago, I would hate it now. And I don't feel like I'm going to hate this in five years.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when you hopped onto the scene, just paying attention. I think the first video I saw of you was like from Song Suffragettes, maybe Tumbleweed,
Yes.
which was awesome though.
Thank you.
But it was like you could see your personality even then,
Thank you.
your stage presence just with a guitar or a guitar player or whatever.
Yeah.
But I remember that, and it's been cool. Like I've been following along with your journey, watching you like drop songs, but the album's a statement.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I feel like, it was my choice to, when I got signed, not go straight to radio.
Mm-hmm.
And then that, led to, okay, can I put 5 songs out in 1 year, every 8 to 10 weeks, so that when I go play 30-minute shows for radio, I have an actual set. I'm not playing covers. I'm not a cover band. And then only 2 got put out in 2018 by some weird circumstances. 2019, okay, we're putting 5 songs out. 2020, we'll go to radio. Well, then you know what happened, COVID.
Yep.
Right, so we're here, and it's just nice that, like, I'm going to be putting music out that's not 6 years old.
Yeah.
And I don't have to play shows with old music for new fans that's not me anymore.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? I get to kind of just go, no, this is literally who I am now, and this is who I think I am permanently.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
I think that's a thing too. We talk about, and I mean, we see people when they just move to town because we host a lot of events.
yeah.
And watching someone really figure out who they are,
Right.
and like their thing and what they want to do
Right.
is so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's cool to watch that like really come. And then I hadn't really seen you. I've seen you play full band before, but I hadn't seen you like acoustic like I did at the writers round at the listening room. So seeing that too, I think really gave a good indication of your personality too. Like I'd seen some interviews.
What? No, guys, I'm shy. What do you mean?
But it's funny too because we know May pretty well. We've seen her a good bit, and she's a little sassy, but like comparative to you, like. But I love that. I thought it was amazing. Kurt and I, we actually had Alex on the pod, and we were like, we got to see him, and we saw him at that show. And man, that whole entire.
I think
round
I
was so
cried.
good.
Everyone sang a song. I'm like not a big crier, obviously, and I was just like, what is going on? I don't know if I was like in a weird mental state or something, but it was just like all these songs. Like Ryan sang that song about that little kid that kept coming over to his house.
Yes, I cried during that song
Yeah.
too, so you were not alone.
And then May sang "Daddies Make a Difference."
Yeah, yep.
Just all like the whole night. You know, it's just like such a good writers round.
It was nice too to like be on stage where I felt like we all equally admired one another. I didn't feel like there was like a weak link or someone who was like winning the round, because we tend to do that in our heads when we play writers round, like, oh, who's doing the best, who's not, whatever, who's like capturing the crowd. I felt like it was so equal, and I felt like Alex put that round together so well. Like, I feel like our music all was different but still was cohesive at the same time.
Agreed.
Yeah, it was like different flavors of country, you know?
Yeah.
For sure. And I was so complimented because I had never met Ryan or May before. I'd heard of them and knew kind of their vibe. And I was so complimented because May on stage said something like, I thought I was scary, but like if I'm hiding a body, I'm calling you. And I think I said something about like pigs. And there was this man like having pigs to like eat the body. And there was a man in the front in overalls that you could tell was like hee-haw, that hadn't laughed the whole round. And I said the pig comment, and he almost fell out of his chair. And I just remember in my head being like, yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, I got the one guy.
Yeah, I got the one guy that his wife made him come to this round.
Yeah.
It's so great though, and that's one of the best things about music is that you can impact people's psyche or their but part of that is the stories, you know, so whether that's just a couple seconds before a song on stage before you kick into a full band show, or whether it's like you have a little bit more extensive time at a writer's round, I think that's part of the expression that makes it so that the songs are just that much more meaningful.
Yeah, and I feel like one of my favorite things about performing on stage, whether it's at a writer's round or a full band show, is finding people in the crowd and I watch them the entire show.
Like,
because
quit staring
they
at me.
don't know. They don't know. I try to be like as, incognito as I can about it. But I will watch them at the beginning of the show. They're either stressed and you can tell they're in their head, right? And they've come because they know that they need to get out of their head, but they haven't yet. Or I watch them look at me, come out in my tight pants and my belly shirt, and they're judging me. And I can see that. I don't get offended at the beginning. Right? And I watch them. And I watch them kind of like, start to not hate it at the beginning. And then we get to the middle of the show, and like I see them loosen up, and maybe they're bobbing a little bit or whatever. And by the end of the show, if they are like fully out of their head, or they realize that I'm not the people that were judging me, I'm not in a belly shirt and waving my hips to try to get your man. I'm doing it so that you feel better about yourself, so that you feel confident and you feel like you can overcome whatever you came in here with, or you can feel sexy, or you can feel like a bad bee, like whatever it is. That's one of my favorite things, because that's what I have to give as an artist is like, can I help you? Yeah. Can I help you through? Can I help you get out of your head and your body and feel empowered? And that is like more rewarding than anything else I get from being on stage, is like watching someone's like psychological process.
I love that.
Hopefully they don't see me staring at them.
Yeah. Man, what a wild thing. It's like sometimes I'm in my head so much on stage, I don't have time to even notice the crowd, Yeah. But then sometimes when I'm in it and I'm running around on stage and I'm like making jokes with the people, you know, and you kind of have like your own little things with them, it's so fun. And I think even if you're not the person that's interacting with whoever's on stage, it's entertaining to watch other people interact with the crowd too.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I like to if I see someone, let's say Karen from Walmart looks a little uncomfortable, she might be a little judgy. That might be her projecting. That's all right. We'll give her a chance. I like to, let her dip her toe into the music, realize why I'm moving my body and moving my hair. And then let's say like 3/4 of the way through the set, if there's something funny that I'm singing or something a little sassy, I'll sing it right to her face. But not in a rude way, but in a like, come on, baby, it's not that serious.
Yeah.
Like we're here to have a good time. We're on a spinning rock. Yeah. Take a breath. Take a breath. There's a time you smoked cigarettes. Think back to that time.
Yeah.
And then you see them go, oh, and they kind of smile because they realize that they've like been confronted in the most like innocent, fun, playful of ways, and they're like, oh yeah, and then they'll laugh the rest of the show, and I'm like, that's what I thought. See, we
I
can
can
be
visualize
fun.
this in my brain so clearly. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm not gonna actually taxidermy you. Like,
Yeah,
let's chill.
exactly. I don't want your husband.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're like, I have one and he's great.
Yeah, exactly.
So we were talking about like what you wear. So
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I think is interesting about you is that you do all of your own kind of design and like aesthetic.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of times in the industry, there's a lot of people to help with stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
At what age did you kind of get into that, and how's it kind of helped you craft who you are as an artist?
Yeah, so my mom was born in Nashville. Super poor, like dirt poor. Didn't have a mom. And she would get clothes from the church donation bin, and she learned to sew them up so that they would fit, because she would just get whatever she would get. And so I was in theater and ballet and everything growing up, and we weren't like the most well off. So my mom was always taking in my clothes or fixing the costumes or whatever. And I was just one of those kids that if something offered creative freedom or creative choice, I wanted to learn how to use that for myself. And so I think it was like middle school when my mom would take me to the Salvation Army and buy me like 80s wedding dresses, you know, like the big heinous ones, and prom dresses for like $2. And I would take them home and take them apart and learn how they were put together. And I would put them back together and they would be awful, but I would wear them to school and my mom would tell me I look great. I did not look great. And I would
love to
make
see that.
Halloween costumes and like all kinds of stuff. And I love to sew just because it was like a disciplined thing that I didn't have in many other areas of my life. Because the design in sewing is subjective, but the actual execution is objective. Like it's like A plus B equals C, and that's it. If you have the patience and the skill and you follow the direction, you'll have the outcome. And so it's not really something that I took overly serious through high school, not really in college, because, you know, you live in a dorm room, or I lived in a 450 square foot apartment downtown. Like I don't have room for that.
Yeah.
And then when I got my label deal and we were doing content actually for taxidermy, right? The label gives you a budget. And I've just always been one of those people that if I get a vision in my head for something, whether it's clothes or a room or whatever, and I can't find it, I have to make it. Like I just can't sleep unless I get that out of my head. So I remember I made clothes for the taxidermy music video, and I hadn't made clothes in like years, like 4 or 5 years. And it just grew from there because it was like, oh, I can make that and I have the time. And it costs less money and nobody else has it. And it's going to fit me better and it's going to look cooler. And it just like grew and grew and grew into stage outfits, music video outfits, red carpet outfits. And now it's just like such a part of who I am, like my brand, but I hate that word. It's just a part of who I am. It's a different creative alleyway away from songwriting and performing that's much more structured and like quickly rewarding, right? I don't have to wait on somebody else to release the music. I don't have to wait on somebody else to master the song. I don't have to wait for somebody to book the show. I just make the clothes. I have it. It's exactly what I wanted. Gratification, you know, over and over. And so it's become this staple. And if I can influence other people to, you know, work with what they're given and work with the amount of money that they have in their budget and kind of think about the planet and learn a skill that maybe they haven't seen since their grandma was doing it, that's super sick to me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and it has that kind of like old-timey thing,
Yeah.
you know, but at the same time, it's not old. What you're doing is not old-timey at all.
Yeah,
Right? It's
right.
very modern and like pushing the boundaries a little bit, you know.
Yeah, and it's weird how that impression affects some people when meeting me, because if they're more of the old school mindset and they think maybe some things that I do are too progressive or yada yada yada, they learn I sew and they go, oh. It's like if I would have like baked them a pie or something.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They're like, oh, you do the old school way. And I'm like, yes, I'm actually very old school, just creatively progressive.
Yeah.
And so it's always funny.
Yeah. How do you feel about, I mean, now that we're seeing so much crossover with
Mm-hmm.
other genres and
Yeah.
things like that, with having gotten flack for that, is there any emotion that comes from that or anything good or bad, or do you think it's going to help you or?
I mean, I think it's cool. I think as long as this is anything in life, as long as it's done well,
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You can be anything you want to be as long as it's done well. Like, lean in. One of my favorite quotes of all time, Abraham Lincoln, whatever you are, be a good one. Like, just do it well. I don't care. If Beyonce wants to make an album that she describes as like Beyonce country, not fully country genre, but her thing, cool. If it's good, I don't care. If Post Malone wants, I don't care. Is it good?
Yeah.
And so whatever like widens, I guess, the skill of the genre or brings in new life or makes it better in general, I feel no offense or anything.
Yeah.
I was gonna stick with me either way. Do you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? I don't feel inclined to, because it's going more this or more this, that I'm gonna go that way.
Yeah.
I just make what I think is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people talk about like not listening to a ton of stuff in genre or some people are like, I only listen in genre. What are your musical things that you consume now? You know, maybe even more than like childhood wise.
Yeah, so I listen to a wide range. Like, the 3 last albums that I bought are the Post Long Bed, the Sabrina Carpenter album that just came out, and the new Sturgill album.
Yeah.
But to me, all of those albums feel authentic.
Yeah.
And so I just like things that have good songwriting, that have a lot of guitars. I'm just a guitar girl. If the whole album is
Same.
piano, I'm like, nah, I don't want it. Like,
Yeah.
or if the whole album is banjo, I'm like, nah, I want dirty, dusty, grimy, stanky guitars. And so if it feels authentic and the songwriting is good and the vocal is good, I'm probably gonna listen to it.
Yeah.
So I listen to rock, country, pop, R&B.
Cool.
Yeah.
That Sabrina stuff's so cool.
It's
Yeah.
the songwriting,
Yes, it's insane.
like, is so good, and I kind of get upset when people are like, they treat the word or the description of pop as like a upturned nose, shallow thing, and you're like, this songwriting on that album is so good. Like, the songwriting is so good and so quirky and witty, and the melody is incredible.
Fresh, yeah.
Yeah, and her vocal is incredible, and there's so many organic instrumental elements on it that you're like, it's pop by nature, but like there's an acoustic guitar on like 75% of that album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like we're in such a cool spot right now for pop music. Not to
Yep.
like get too far out of our usual lane or whatever.
No.
But like all the Chapel stuff, I'm like, listen to this, I'm
It's so good.
like when I was a kid, it was like the pop music wasn't this cool. I mean,
No.
there was of course some good stuff, but it was like I was like, man, Beatles were pop. That must be cool to have all this cool songwriting. And then I hear like, you know, like the Sabrina stuff, like where it modulates and there's all these cool chord changes and stuff. I'm like, damn, this is awesome.
Yeah. When pop music, like it is right now, like with Chapel, like you said, and everyone, when it is so like organic talent, you're like, those are real instruments, those are real voices, that is real songwriting. It's not a bunch of synth stuff. This isn't a person who can't sing live. This is like, that person is a true performer. Those are real instruments. That's real songwriting. I think it's great.
Yeah, it's
I
fun.
agree.
It's cool. I don't know. And the stories that come with it is so interesting too. Like how it's just like this like girl pop stuff. It's like going crazy. I love like reading about how like Chapel played Bonnaroo and had like 10 trillion people.
Yeah.
But the slot was booked before like she blew up. And so Charles played after her. He didn't even know who she was. He got off stage and like said hi to her, and she just was like walking around with no shirt on except for like the X's, like the pasties on. He said someone was like, there's a photo of them talking. He had just no idea who this like topless woman was.
So crazy.
That's hilarious. Have you seen the meme that's like Charlie SCX Sabrina Carpenter and Chappell Roan are the Powder Puff Girls of pop right now. It's like
fair,
perfect.
Yeah.
I'm like,
So
I
great.
think that's amazing. And I think it's really cool that those 3 girls right now, you know, I kind of keep this in the back of my head and how long it's taken my album to come out and everything to like start working. Those are 3 artists who have been doing this for a very long time. This is not someone that popped up overnight, like actually popped up overnight, blew up on TikTok, and then the label put millions of dollars behind. Sabrina's, this is like her 5th or 6th album. Chappell was singing that song years ago. No one was paying attention to. Charlie SCX has been doing it forever. No one was paying attention. That's like so validating and motivating to me, and I'm sure it is to other artists too, of like they're finally getting their due, and they're getting their due because they're that talented and it's that good.
Yeah. One of the things that I talk about too is when you find a band or an artist and there's a catalog that you can go back to
Yes.
to actually kind of hear more, I think it's so powerful.
It's so nice because you know it's bad when someone blows up on like an EP or like one song or whatever. If they don't get shit out quickly that more people can consume, goes
you
away
lose
so
it. Yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I felt about like when I dove into Wilder Blue and I'm like, oh, I like this song. I'm like, oh wow, there's all this music out, and Zayn has all these records out. It's like when you find a Netflix show where there's like 8 seasons of it, and you just start it, you know, like, oh, this is good, and you can just kind of just sit in it. And it's
Yep.
great.
Yeah.
I love that. I think it's also neat to talk about like from the early times to where it's at, you know?
Yeah.
So if it starts and you're at song 3 and it's working, you can't see where they came from. You know,
Yeah.
you can't see the aesthetic change either.
Yeah,
You know? Like
I agree.
really understanding who you are as a person. And in my opinion, like that's part of becoming like a true adult is like
Right.
understanding who you are and being okay in that skin.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah.
Is a important part. And I mean, as an artist, I can't even imagine because me just my friends I'm worried about that, you know? So as an
Yeah.
artist, it's like you have to be ahead of not being worried about that stuff. Or
Yeah.
if you are worried about it, not letting that overtake things, you
Totally.
know? Just be you and be the best version of you can be.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm so excited along those same lines to put out an album
Yeah.
because it's something that people can actually swim in
Yeah.
instead of here's a single that's one little piece of a side of me and now you think that's your entire impression of me and now we've got to wait 5 or 6 months before you get another little tiny speck and now you think I'm that, but in reality I've been this entire spectrum this whole time. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's
And
like a
this
puzzle
was just
piece
a
or something.
facet. Yeah, so it's nice to like finally have 10 songs coming out where it's like, no, I'm giving you like a big chunk.
Yeah.
So now you can finally decide if you like it or what you think I am or what box I fit into or whatever is like at least you have a full length thing to get into.
Yeah.
How many songs on the new record?
10.
10.
Oh, solid.
Yeah.
Yes.
And why don't we dig into that a little bit? Are there
Okay.
any from that? Because maybe when this is published, I think it will probably be right around when the album's dropping, or if someone's listening to this
Yes.
months from now.
Hello.
So why don't we talk about some of the songs?
Okay.
Maybe start with the title track,
Yeah.
and then just a couple of the other ones that maybe mean the most for you.
Yeah, so Made from the Dirt. It's number 1 on the album. I actually got that song title idea from I was watching a live feed of a fashion show, a couture show. And the models were dressed in the most gorgeous, I'm like a chrome addict. I love silver. My whole motorcycle's chrome. I'm usually decked out in all kinds of jewelry. So I see shiny chrome and I'm like, oh, I have to see this. The models were decked out in the most gorgeous, like metallic chrome, intricate gowns that were slightly masculine looking, like a little armor, gorgeous, whatever. Couture, fabulous. Trudging through the fashion show was in a mud, like dirt track arena. Lights were off, spotlight was on them, and they had to trudge through basically like a motocross track.
Wow.
In this
Super
couture. Super weird, super cool. And you could tell that they were actually struggling. Like this was not acting. And that was the point. And I just loved the juxtaposition of it. First of all, just on the record, point blank, with any conversation. I think everything gorgeous and artistic is a juxtaposition. It is made up of two things that somebody said aren't supposed to go together. Like, I think that's the true, like, concoction for art. And so I saw this and I was like, what a juxtaposition. I relate so heavily. Because I'm sure, I feel like I've said this 5,000 times. I grew up at mom's house in beauty pageants and ballet and every stage that she could ever put me on. And at dad's, I grew up in the middle of nowhere. I shot muzzle loaders competitively. I raced dirt bikes. Like, I'm daddy's little boy. So, like, that fashion, I saw it and I was like, oh, that I just couldn't relate more. And so I took that title into Luke Laird and Oscar Charles. Luke and I co-produced the album, and Oscar produced the vocals and mixed it. So these are like the two main collaborators on the entire piece. And I took the words in, I was made from the dirt, came up from the ground, born to bloom when I get knocked down. And I told them, I was like, everything that I value about myself, that if I had to write down a list of my favorite things about myself, whether it was skills, talents, whatever, coping mechanisms, those things were all born from struggle or like an obstacle that I had to face or something in my life that wasn't great. All my favorite things I was not like born with. It all came from something that wasn't supposed to happen in like a fairy tale. And so I was literally made from the dirt. And like my favorite experience in life is the get back up. Because I'm just like, oh, you have no idea who you push down. Like, this is easy for me. And so I took that title in. They were the perfect duo to write it with just because they get me. And it felt like it was three pieces of the same brain in the room that day. And I just knew it had to be the title track. So I was like, if I'm going to debut and I'm going to introduce myself, I want you to know that, like, I came from shit and I love it. I love that. And, like, I will never forget that, and I will never take that for granted. And, like, I will always, fight, basically.
Yeah.
Damn,
So
that's
then,
badass.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then let's see. Number 2, Son of a Gun. That one's already out. Number 3, Called Crazy is my current single. That one, just like for the smallest explanation, if that is not a monster hit, I don't know what is.
Yes.
The day that we wrote it, I was like, I'll fist fight somebody who doesn't think that this should be number 1 for at least 1 week. like, and if this is not commercial country, like, I don't know what I can give to this space. Like, I grew up, Miranda Lambert was my first ringtone ever. Like, I had a little 10, 15-second splice of kerosene, and I used to just, on my flip phone, and I would just walk around just, like, listening to that splice over and over. So, luckily, it's catching on, thank God.
Yes.
Even if it's slow, it's fine. Number 4, I Don't Want to Dance. Number 5, The Straw. That song is 7 years old. I wrote it at a Spotify Secret Genius. Remember when they were doing Secret Genius because they were trying to like act like they care about songwriters? Yeah. And they were like,
I don't know.
they had like these camps, right? And they were going to do this big songwriter push and whatever. The first Nashville camp they ever had was for me, and to write for me. And I just went through a breakup, and I was writing with Luke Laird and Lori McKenna that day, and she was like, I thought you had a boyfriend and you like guys bought a house, and like what happened? And I was like, well, the straw that broke my back was blah blah blah. And she goes, I've always wanted to write that, The Straw. And so they let me cry. We were in Zach Brown's studio with like this baby grand, and they just let me cry lyrics out for 3 hours. And from the moment I wrote that, I knew it was going on the debut album. Like, hands down. First time I ever played it was at the Ryman for CRS for UMG. I got a standing ovation. Literally, Chris Stapleton came down from his dressing room to tell me how good I was. And I was like, this is not real. This is like a movie. And I knew it was going to go on the debut album. Didn't know that was going to take 7 years to come out. And I had a big pop artist try to get the song from me. I said no.
Who was it?
It was Rihanna.
Oh, man.
And I was like, no, She doesn't even have an album out. Yeah, so thank God. So thank God I didn't give it away. I had executives try to tell me, you need to put that song out. And I was like, no, it's going on the album. It's a pillar of who I am. Like, this is a classic me song. No way. No way. And so thank God I listened to my gut, because I feel like it would have been wasted if I would have put it out any time before this.
Yeah.
Number 6.
I don't know if I could tell Rihanna no. Good for you.
Oh, I just was like, no, this is, if I'm going to war, this is my missile.
Right,
You got missiles. Like, you're Rihanna. Like, you're good. Like, if you want to cover it after I put it out, if you want to do the Tame Impala thing, like there's a Tame Impala song that she put on the last album. If you want to do that, like have at it, but I need it first. Like, I can't let you put it out and then I do a cover of it, because people will never think that I wrote it.
Well, that's what happened with Jamey. So Trace Atkins had cut in color, and Jamey said, "Don't quote me on this. I'm pretty sure it was Trace." But then he pulled it back and was like, "No, I'm saving this for myself."
Yeah.
Now it's like my favorite country song.
Yeah.
So
I feel like you have to be picky and you have to listen to your gut. And you can't just like chase the money, and you can't it's just like,
Right.
no. If I'm picking who I am as an artist and I'm being true to myself, this is me. This is me. And I feel like I'm going to help people with this song, and I'm going to make people with broken hearts feel seen. And it doesn't matter. And to me, it was like cockiness about how good I thought the song was. Like, no, this will still be relevant and good in 7 years or whenever.
Yeah.
Which, knock on wood, I hope it is. Number 6, Angels Smoke Cigarettes. I love that song. It's actually that title. I was sitting in my dad's shop. Our shop is like 3 times the size of our house, right? Because we're hillbillies.
Yeah.
And there's this restaurant booth that we dumpster dove for. It's from like a Shoney's or something. I don't know. And that's where we sit when I'm back home and like eat deer steak and talk bullshit. And my dad was talking about one time about how he has his high school car. It's like a 1960 something Roadrunner. It's lime green with like the black like center stripe, and how back in the day you could outrun cops because the engines were faster than the cop car engines, and how if you had, let's say, drugs in the car, the cops never knew, like whatever. And so he was saying if he had guardian angels, he bets they're tired, like because he ran them ragged, and we're laughing and whatever. And I was on my way back to Nashville, and I was like, if Dad's angels are tired, mine are pissed. Because mine are like in the HR office, like, I need a vacation. Like, you gotta sub me out. This girl is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And then I thought, no, I bet my angels are a lot like my dad. They would have to be in order to deal with me. Just chill. You know, smoking a cigarette, like, are you getting drunk? Can you call me if you're drunk? I'll come and get you. Like, who are you with? Don't lie to me and we'll be chill. Like, you're a kid. Go be a kid. And so I had the title Angel Smoke Cigarettes. And I thought that was provocative and a bit terrifying to take into a writer room. Just because in country, we hold Christianity to such a high standard. And so are we allowed to say these religious figures smoke cigarettes? Are we allowed to say that? And so I took it into, I'm a broken record, Luke Laird. We're 2 halves of the same creative brain. I love him to death. And Laurie McKenna and Barry Dean, people who are like my family, that I felt okay to take that title, that I knew I wouldn't be judged. And they were all kind of sitting there, and I was like, oh, what have I done? Like, these are very, like, religious people, right? Like, Luke loves the Lord. And so I'm like, what have I done? And Barry, after 10 minutes, looks up and he goes, like this? And he had written the chorus, just, like, wrote it down, like, as if it were a train of thought. And I was like, yeah, can I copy your paper? Like, thank you so much. And so that song came out. I can't wait for people to hear that. Number 7, The Stars Know. Number 8, Drive You Out of My Mind, which I hope to God people have heard already. Number 9, Till the Lights Go Out, was supposed to be the last song on the album. I was writing with Oscar Charles, again, who produced the vocals, mixed the album, and Natalie Hemby. And Natalie and I have been writing for 7 years. And she came in and she goes, we're writing a song for your album today. I don't care if we're here until midnight. If we start something and you don't like it, tell me to stop. I'm like, all right. I love that. You can only like hope for that kind of dedication from somebody who is as massive and poetic and gorgeous as Natalie Hemby. And so we started writing like 2 or 3 things. And I was like, no. And I was like, listen, I've been covering Rhiannon by Fleetwood Mac on tour, and it slaps. The dance move that I do when we do it and the way it makes the crowd feel if they're 70 or if they're 17 works every time. So if we can hit that mark, I'm missing that, and that would be great. And we're sitting there, and we had turned the track off, and she's just playing guitar, and she looks at me, and we were talking about how even if this takes another 7 years or another 14 years, I'm still going to be doing it. I've never once in my brain thought, maybe I should quit. Ever. Right? Maybe I'm stubborn. Maybe I'm spiteful. I'm not really sure. But, like, this is literally what I do. There is no other option. I will do this until I die. I hope I die in the middle of the stage singing. I hope I just keel over. That's, like, my dream way to go. Like, not in my sleep. No. I hope I just, boom, she's dead. Great. And so she looked at me. She was just strumming, and she sang, maybe I'm made of big dreams in small towns. And I looked at her and said, always chasing. And we both were like, oh. So we wrote the chorus about how, like, I was made for taking bows. And, like, I'm not going to trade a star for a stone, a wish for a bone when I was made for taking bows. And we got to the hook, and she goes, what is it? And I was like, I'll do it till the fucking lights go out. And so, thank God we had rhymed something that without. We had said down. And it just was like, this has to be the last one on the album. This has to be the last one on the album, because if Made from the Dirt is the beginning, and I say, I've made from dirt, I came from dirt, I like that about myself. I like the struggle. I like the whatever. I'll be doing it till I die. It doesn't matter how long it takes. So that was supposed to be the bookend, right? And then last October, my grandma passed away. The only grandma I've ever had. Her name is Juanita. And we knew that she was about to pass away. And we didn't know how quickly, but we knew that she was in the process. And she asked me to sing 3 songs, record 3 songs, and play them. What is that?
Ghosts.
Super weird. Yeah. Hello. She asked me to record 3 songs and play them at her funeral. How Great Thou Art, In the Garden, and me pick the 3rd one. I don't know if you've ever had to pick a song for someone's funeral. Not fun. Don't advise it. It's awful, especially if it's someone that close to you. How could you ever do justice? Even as music people who love making playlists or whatever. Awful. So you know your grandma's dying. You're listening to songs about dying. It's terrible. I had just bought this little vintage rubber bridge guitar. And so I was like, I guess I could just try writing one, and maybe I can finish it before she dies so that, you know, she can approve it or scold me or whatever the case is. And so I wrote half of it. She passed away, you know, before I got it finished. And from the day she passed away, she died on Halloween. I had the 2 days afterward, and then the next day I'd have to go to Missouri for the funeral. So the day after she died, I sat in my living room by myself, trying to write this, just bawling, asking the space around me, you know, in the living room, hey, Grandma, if you're in here, could you please tell me what you want me to say about you? Like, this is awful. Like, please, like, could you put something in my brain or whatever? And so I finished the song. You know, I go in the next day with Luke and a guy named Mike, who's a studio engineer, to just do guitar vocals. And I was in the booth singing the vocal. I named it Juanita, the song. And I started crying tears of joy because I was like, when did this song get so joyful? I thought I wrote a sad song, like a song of longing. When did this become this, like, hopeful, like, renewal sounding thing? And then I thought, oh, that must have been my grandma. when I asked her for help.
Yeah.
And so I turned it into my publisher just as like can you guys document that I wrote this by myself? I'm never playing it for anyone. It'll play at the funeral. That's it. And Beth Laird, who is my publisher and one of my managers, was like, you have to cut this, right? And I was like, no, this is for my grandma and my grandma only. Like, no, thank you. Nobody wants to hear a song about my grandma who's passed. And she's like, yeah, you have to cut this. And then Chelsea, the head of A&R at UMG, was like, hey, you have to cut this. And so I was like, okay. And I don't have a big enough ego to be like, I'm right, and no one else, can tell me what to do. So I'm like, if these two people who I trust and love dearly, who I know have my best, at heart, then maybe I should cut this. So I went in and wrote a bridge. And I went into the studio when we were cutting songs, and I told the guys, the studio musicians, I don't know if you're into that sort of thing, the guys that play on my record, we played together for 7 years. Like, they've played on every single song I've ever cut. It's Justin Ostrander on guitar, Eli Beard on bass, Tal Lombardo on acoustic, Evan Hutchings on drums, Dave Cohen on synth. Like, they're like the coolest, most talented dudes. And I was like, can you guys I'm like playing it on my little rubber bridge, trying to like not cry, trying to evoke the emotion that I want. And I was like, can you guys just make this sound like a river baptism? And the banks of the river are covered in lilacs, because that's my grandma's favorite flower. And where they're kind of like celebrating the life, not mourning it. Can you guys just kind of make it sound... There might be some weed also on the hillside, but besides that, can you just like make this like a joyful, sunny sounding thing? And they were like, yes. The first take that they did is what you hear.
That's amazing.
It was... I started bawling. It's not my first vocal take for sure, but like they got it. And I don't know how they did, but it was literally perfect. It's one of my favorite things I've ever made. And Luke leaned over to me and he goes, this is still going to sound good in 10 years, right? And I was just like crying, because it's validating to have written a song by myself and to basically produce it by myself and communicate in unintelligent terms what I want it to sound like, and for them to just get it. And so I put it as number 10 on the album, because I felt like If Made from the Dirt is the opening of the movie. Until the Lights Go Out is the happy ending, right? The guy throws his fists in the air, or he gets the girl, or like whatever the thing is. Juanita is the credits, where you like get to sit and reflect on what you just watched, and you get to see like who did it, why we did it, who we did it for, who we did it because of. And so I just hope that my grandma likes it.
She's going to love it.
Good. I hope so.
Yeah, that's so powerful.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me be long-winded. I appreciate that.
That's why we do long episodes. It's not radio thing. It's like, get to talk about what's on your heart, and hopefully the people that listen to the record know where it's coming from.
Yeah.
That same place.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's so great. And as a person, the songs mean the world to us,
Right.
And the ones that mean the most are the ones that mean the most to you.
Yeah, totally. I
So
appreciate that.
thank you for sharing them with us.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Man, if that ain't country,
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being on this podcast.
Oh my
with
gosh.
us.
Thank you for having me. Are you
Absolutely.
kidding?
It's been a blessing. And finally get to do something cool with you has been great too.
Yes.
Is there anything else that you want to plug no? Good.
No.
That was a pretty special story to end on, I feel like.
Thank you.
I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, guys, I'm Nicky T.
Kurt Ozan, and we'll see you on the front row. Thank you, Cassie.
Bye.
Appreciate it.